than maybe we would have done in classes previous. Because there are things that are like, okay, it would be really good and helpful if you knew it. And then there are things that you just have to know. Okay, we are going to focus on info up here when we're doing class notes on things that we have to know. And then the ALEKS program will sort of supplement those other pieces, where it's things that you've seen before and you might need a little bit of a reminder on it. Or, I'll be honest with you, some students say, I'm skipping that, I don't know it. Okay, and let's be real, we're not going to walk away from algebra knowing every single topic 100%. So if that's the one topic you choose to skip, that's okay. So we're looking at properties today, and while there are a ton of them, we're going to look at the three most important ones. Okay, the first one being the commutative property. Okay, so the commutative property starts with CO, change order. And that's exactly what it gives us permission to do. Okay, so in the math world, you can't just do whatever. There are actually rules and properties that tell us what we can do. And the commutative property says in two situations, it's okay to change the order. There is a commutative property of addition. And there is a commutative property of multiplication. Okay, this says it's okay for us to change the order if we're dealing with addition, and it's okay for us to change the order if we're dealing with multiplication. Since subtraction and division aren't up here, it's not okay to change the order with division or subtraction. So if we want to add two things, so maybe if we want A plus B, the commutative property says it's okay to think about it or to write it as B plus A. It's okay to flip-flop. This is most commonly used with equations. So if students see something that says 4 plus x, oftentimes my students prefer to think about it as x plus 4. Right? It's just that idea that they can be in reversed order. Okay, same way for multiplication, just different symbol. A times B is the same thing as saying B times A. Right, we wouldn't see something that says x times 4 very often. But instead, we switch that order and we would say 4x. Okay, so that's property number 1. We can change the order. Property number 2 is the associative property. The associative property property allows us to regroup. We tend to regroup with parentheses, but we're not changing order. And whether you know it or not, this is one that we frequently use without thinking about it. Okay, because often if we're given multiple things to combine, right, if we have 27 plus 15 plus 10, and we don't have a calculator, we don't add all three of them at once, right? We add two of them, and then we add the third one to it, right? And that's what the associative property allows us to do. So we have an associative property of addition and of multiplication, once again. Division and subtraction are sort of our lame ones. They don't get to do much. Okay, so this says if we have something like A plus B plus C, we could choose to add A plus B and then add C to it, or we could choose to add B plus C first and then add A to it. So while this is like lame, we could do this math, but right, if we saw 1 plus 2 plus 3, what we would really do, right, is 1 plus 2 is 3, and then 3 plus 3 is 6. But that would be the same thing as saying, oh, well, 2 plus 3 is 5, and 5 plus 1 is 6. Right? You can sort of pick and regroup those in order, those in whatever makes sense for your brain to add first. So same thing for multiplication, right? If we had 1 times 2 times 3, that would be the same thing as 1 times 2 times 3. The key is that we are not changing the order. Right? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Questions on the associative property? Okay, there's 2 of 3 for today. The third one is the most important. And hopefully when I put this up here, you know this word. Okay, the distributive property tells us that we can pass out with multiplication. Right? That is what the word distribute means. Okay, so to distribute, we're passing something out, but now we're passing it out with multiplication. The biggest piece we need to make sure we're okay with the distributive property is our signs. Okay, so if I pass this out here, I'm saying 4 times x, which is the same thing as 4x. And if I pass this out here, I'm saying 4 times 3. And I get 4x plus 12. And my students are, no problem, that one's fine. Bless you. But as soon as negatives come into play and we have to consider signs, my students tend to have a little bit more of a problem. Okay, so we have to decide, is this a negative 3 or is this subtraction?
Negative 3. Both.
But it says x minus 3. What is it, Dylan?
Both.
It's both. And my student's like, oh, that's so lame, math is the worst, why does it do that? But class, everything in life is like this. What is this word?
Green.
Are we sure it's not red? It's both, right? It's all context. If you're reading a sentence in past tense, then this is read. If you're reading it in present tense, then it's read. Right? You have to decide the structure of the sentence. Our brain is just so used to doing that when we read that we don't think about it anymore. But the same thing is true up here. If I read this piece inside, this expression in here, I read it as x minus 3. But if I ignore everything except the number, it's negative 3. Okay, so it's all context. I think the easiest way to distribute is to always keep the sign with the number. Okay, so when you distribute, take negative 4 times x, which gives you negative 4x. And when you distribute here, keep the sign with the number. So we'll take negative 4 times negative 3. What is negative 4 times negative 3? Positive 12. And yes, when we write this as a positive, we now read this expression as negative 4x plus 12. But that's okay. They're the same thing. Are we okay on that?
No.
Okay, so here's what needs to happen. We need to make this happen on our own. Otherwise, I will just assign everyone. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you like a minute to make this happen, and if we can't, I'll just start partnering you up. You need to find a partner, one partner, and you need to stand back to back. There will be one group of 3. If there is more than one group of 3, I will stop and I will re-put you into groups.